My name is Jono Proudfoot, and this is Real Meal TV. Prof, thanks very much for joining us on Couch Time again. Your autobiography, Challenging Beliefs, tells quite a few stories, and it's a very interesting title. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that title comes from? Is it an ego thing, you love standing up to the man, or is it deeper than that?
What I learned in my career is that I love paradoxes, and a paradox is something that is not explicable by current knowledge. And I've always looked for those paradoxes because they explain what's wrong with the science. So it begins, for example, in the 1970s when it was said that if you were a marathon runner, you would never have a heart attack. And the very first paper I ever presented overseas at an international conference was exactly that. And I presented it at the first conference on marathons with all the world authorities. And I showed them that actually marathon runners could have heart attacks. Now, this was in 1976 when the marathon running was just taking off. And everyone thought that this was the final solution for your health, just run marathons. And I got up there and said, sorry guys, you can have heart attacks. And you can imagine the response wasn't so great.
Yeah.
So I think that was the start. And the next one was that a lady finished the Comrades Marathon unconscious. And so, of course, the idea was, well, she had to be dehydrated. And over time, we showed that she was the opposite. She was overhydrated. And then that's the paradox. How is it possible that we should think that dehydration is the killer when we eventually showed that overhydration is the real killer and tried to explain those? Yeah. So the title Challenging Beliefs was the title I gave to a lecture I gave in America, the J.B. Wolfe Memorial Lecture, 1996. It's probably the most prestigious lecture in the sports sciences. And because I was a generalist, I had to come up with a title that would be appealing to the audience. Yeah. And challenging belief, obviously challenging can either be a verb or a noun. And that's why it is of interest.
Of course.
And so the beliefs I was setting forward were challenging because in my view they were wrong. And if they're wrong, then we were challenging the beliefs of the whole audience. And the key in that challenging beliefs was the idea that the brain regulates exercise performance. It was the first time I actually formulated that idea. And you have to understand that up to that point, if you said the brain regulates exercise performance, you were excommunicated. Because we know, I mean, the experts know that when you run, muscles get tight. I mean, that's what it feels like, we know. And what you learn in science is that there are simple explanations and they're almost always wrong. When you have the simple explanation for a complex phenomenon, they're almost always wrong. And that's unfortunately what's happened in our medicine and our science. We look for simple answers for complex phenomena. So I've had a great career challenging beliefs, and then more recently, of course, the nutrition side has come along. And that's been the biggest challenge of all for my life, because really, if the central government, if the brain regulates exercise performance, whether or not it's not material to the rest of the world, it doesn't matter. But nutrition, unfortunately, affects every single person, and it's a massive industry. So that's brought more attention to these ideas than anything I've ever done before.
And what do you think the belief is that you are challenging?
The belief I'm challenging is that your diet must contain mainly carbohydrates. Because carbohydrates have unique benefits, that's the idea. Yeah. But the reality is that you do not need 1 gram of carbohydrate. We have no essential need for carbohydrate. And unfortunately, most of us can't metabolize more than 150, 200 grams of carbohydrate a day. And once you do more than that, you get all these chronic illnesses that we talk about. Yeah. And I think we need to realize they're not illnesses, they're just an abnormal response to this abnormal intake of this abnormal product. And if you cut the carbohydrates, the disease or illness disappears. And that's the best evidence we have. Yeah. That much of what we call chronic ill health is not ill health, it's not illness, it's not a disease. It's just this abnormal biological response. Humans were not designed to eat that much carbohydrate. Yeah.
So, I mean, I know even though you're 4 years in, I think we're only at the beginning of the whole process. So I certainly look forward to watching the story unfold over the next few years. Thanks very much for joining us, Prof.
Thanks, John. Pleasure.